Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar From Rollout to Results Scaling Copilot Adoption Across the Enterprise. I'm Revati Kumar, your host for this session. As many organizations begin their Copilot journey, the real challenge starts after the rollout. Questions around adoption, governance, security, and measurable value quickly come to the forefront. Today's session focuses on exactly how enterprises move beyond initial enablement and scale Copilot in a way that delivers real business impact. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll cover what successful Copilot adoption looks like at an enterprise, common roadblocks organizations face after rollout, practical strategies to drive usage, governance, and ROI, real-world insights from enterprise environments. We'll keep the session concise and focused. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat. We'll answer you after the webinar with the help of our experts. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Sai Chiran, for today's session. Welcome, Sai Chiran. Have a great day. It was really great having you today. Over to you.
Thank you, Revati. Thanks for the warm welcome. Such a pleasure meeting you all today. Let me go ahead and quickly share my screen. First of all, thanks for taking your time to attend this webinar. Let me know once you can see my screen.
The screen is visible.
Perfect, thank you. Just to set the stage here, right? So I'll talk about the illusion of rollout, what current enterprise actually deal with, and then I'll also talk about why programs stall, right? I mean, the Copilot program stall in the initial phase one, and then I'll also touch base on the pain points and then the risk and guardrails, which is very important for our AI rollout. And then I'll also quickly talk about the AI adoption accelerator, what we have and how we were deploying to our customers as well. And then finally, I'll also talk about the maturity model, what we have, and then a couple of our best practices, how we are onboarding AI adoption to our different clients, and as well as a couple of our feedback from our customers as well, how we are deploying it, right? So if you look at the illusion of rollout, right? I mean, if you look at most of the enterprise, right, the mentality is if you assign license, the adoption is done, right? So that doesn't work like that, right? So rollout is just a starting point. It is not the finish line, right? If you look at the stark reality, right, only a specific percentage of enterprises actually see a measurable outcomes after they roll out Copilot, right? Because the rest of the organization deal with a lot of constraints in terms of adaptability and then how it can empower a lot of department users, things like that, right? So that is majorly a constraint area, what we foresee. And then if you look at the right-hand side, what is missing, right? If you look at the missing piece there, I mean, it is the right adoption, right? So right adoption is key factor there because that's where Hexacup comes in, and then we do a lot of adoption strategy there. And then second is the governance. If you ask me, governance is the first thing which we have to do before even thinking about rolling out Copilot, right? Setting up the right guardrails and governance from an organization perspective, right? That is very important. Right, and if you look at the third point, right, change management. Of course, this is something which is a change from a human and from a user perspective, right? I mean, where they are shifting from one technology, right? So that's where the adoption gets a little, fluctuating from user to user, but still the right strategy makes user to have a perfect change management there. Right. And finally, if you look at the last point, right, the workflow integration, that's where, a lot of people need help in terms of how can we automate the current business process, right? How can we have an agentic AI solutions deployed to their existing environment, right? So this is something which key missing factors, what we see from organizations which we talk. And just to reiterate again, the illusion, what we foresee is, right, I mean, assigning license is not Copilot adoption. We need to have a right strategy on board to have a successful rollout of AI within the organization, right? And going to the second slide, right? I mean, why most Copilots stall after the phase one, right? So if you look at the major setback from organization, right? Organizations never guide people on how work is supposed to be changing, right? I mean, we just assign license to group and departments, and then they use it, and then they come back with a lot of questions, and then That's not the way to go, right? So if you look at the gaps, right? So these are the six gaps which we identified here, right? So we have been talking with a lot of our customers, right? So this is some major gaps which we foresee, right? So one is the data readiness gap, right? So if you see the data readiness, right, I would say this is the brain of AI, right? So if data is all unstructured and lives in a lot of different environments, then the AI doesn't make sense to be, deployed in that organizations, right? So data readiness is a key factor, right? And second thing, if you look at the cap is access delivered and adoption is optional, right? I mean, you throw out the access and then they do whatever they want. That doesn't make sense to, from an organizational point of view to have a right adoption there, right? And third thing is this is one of the major a critical factor, right? The governance and guardrails, because we are working with a lot of our proprietary organizations and a lot of different compliance environment, right? So setting up a right governance and guardrails is very, very important, right? I have a specific slide to talk about that, but just giving you from a high level gap. So this is something which we see. And fourth is, if you look at the license cost pressure, right? We are getting a lot of pushback from a leadership from an organization where they couldn't identify or they couldn't measure the license cost justification, right? So that's where we help in terms of identifying which department gives a lot of output from a Copilot perspective. How can we measure it from a backend M365 standpoint? Right. And fifth point, if you look at is the training is generic and not role based, right? I mean, even though some organizations arrange trainings and things like that, they are not role based, right? They're all general trainings, right? So that doesn't impact any specific departmental users. So that is something which we see which there is a gap. And if you look at the last point, right, the sixth point, no clear transition to phase two. So what we suggest is all the organizations, what they do is on the phase one, even though they define the phase one structure, right? I mean, they fail to move to the phase two, right? Because they don't have a clear picture on the phase two, right? So that's where the real problem starts kicks in, and then they couldn't even go with the phase one, and then they don't have a clear plan of moving to the phase two as well, right? So these are all the six gaps which we foresee. So feel free to drop in your questions, whatever you have. We can address that later this session. And let me move on to the next slide. So if you look at the pain points around Copilot rollout, right? So this is something which we see a structural challenge across the organization and industries, right? Since we're meeting up with a lot of our customers and our users, right? So this is something which we see in common. They have a critical pain point across this all areas. So similar to the last slide, I've brought in six structural challenges here, which we foresee from a lot of our customers. So one is the low trust in AI output, right? We have been talking to a lot of our customers saying that, hey, AI gives a lot of, a bad output as well, right? AI hallucinates, right? It brings a lot of information which is irrelevant, right? So our job is to maintain and validate the information what AI provides, but also validate the citations as well, whether it is bringing from the right source or from a due diligence perspective, we have to make sure we have to validate the entire content there, right? So we see a lot of people, what they do is they validate it and then they don't see a right information coming up and then they stop using it, right? So that is something a major pain we see from our customers. And second thing, if you look at the second point, right, fear of data exposure to public LLMs, right? So we have been working with a lot of our customers, and recently we have been working with our healthcare customer. And if you look at the pain point there, right, we have been working with a couple of research and analyst departments inside the pharmaceutical industries, right? So what happened is they have a pain point where they are in the process of manufacturing a drug and things like that. So we have been empowering them to use the analyst and research feature which Copilot is offering by, right? But still we have a pushback from them, saying that, hey, we have a problem using that because we don't want it to expose our data to our public LLMs. Even though we preach them, this is not going to do that, but still they have some constraints on all these aspects, right? So we see this common pushback from a lot of our departmental users as well. And if you look at the third point, right, it's shadow AI behavior, right? So we see a lot of our clients coming back and saying that, hey, even though we push Copilot, we still see users using, and AI tools which is not approved by organizations, right? So this is something a common behavior which we see. And if you look at the fourth point, it's a lack of leadership visibility, right? And we also have a lot of leadership coming back to us and asking, hey, I couldn't measure what our departments are actually doing, right? So we need to have some kind of dashboard or a managed platform where I can actually see what departments are using and who is doing what, things like that. So this is something we have a visibility constraint over there. And if you look at the fifth point, right, it's the governance arrive after enablement, right? I mean, that's what I was talking about in the last slide as well. Governance is very important, right? So before even enabling Copilot or before even rolling out, governance has to come in and then set the right stage before users inside the organization start using it. Right. I mean, if you look at the last point, the sixth point, it's a use case clarity gap. I mean, even though, because we see a lot of customers, right? Even though they have a phase one rolled out and then they see a little bit of, I would say success coming out, they have still a gap in terms of identifying the right use case where, it can help the specific department. Right. So these are all the six gaps which we see from an organization perspective. So let me go to the next slide. So this is where we come in, right? I mean, with the dozens of enterprise deployment, right? This is the three success essential things which we see from a Copilot perspective. One is, I would say, from a leadership capability side, right? I mean, if you see these three changes, right? First one is the leadership. So leadership has to be aligned, and then they have to set the stage, clearly defined what roles and responsibility of AI is going to be. How can we have a responsible AI across the organization, right? How can we have a setup, a governance and guardrails, setting up a right team? This is something which we have to bring up from a leadership point of view. And then, so this helps for the futuristic rollouts and then the futuristic deployment of AI across the departments as well, right? And if you look at the second on the middle of the screen, I mean, it's a human change, right? This is something very, very important because, of course, we see a lot of users in different stages, right? Because some users are in a different level, and then some users are getting used to it, and some users are already there at the AI at a very, very agentic level. So things like that. So a lot of people from a different stage, but from an organizational standpoint, we have to make sure we enable this programmatically, where we have communications all set up a right training for right users, and then we have a community best practices, give them a lot of prompt practice. We have all this defined, and then showing them a dashboard like, hey, you are using this much percentage. So that helps a lot of users to move from one stage to another stage. So this is what we see from a human change perspective. And third thing, if you look at the last point, it's technical readiness, right? So if you look at the technical readiness, right, this is something from a security standpoint where setting up an infrastructure, right? I mean, having a correct security team, setting up the right policies, procedures, having a governance call with all the departments, things like that, right? So this is something very important from a technical perspective. So if you ask me, all those three essentials, right? This makes a perfect responsible AI principle across the organization. So this is what we have been trying to, preach all our customers and all our clients as well. They are getting a phenomenal change adopting to this. All right. So let me go to the next slide. So this is something very important topic, right? I wanted to touch base on the governance and guardrails here. So if you look at the if you look at the foundation, right? So this is the foundation for an organization, right? Before even they think of rolling out Copilot or starting up an adoption journey, right? They have to set the governance and guardrails for their enterprises, right? So that is very, very important. So that's what we have been informing all our clients as well. I mean, they're showing a lot of interest in terms of, enabling AI across their organization, but we are telling them to, hey, hold on. I mean, before you do the AI adoption, make sure you have the governance and guardrails set right? Because there should not be any breach or any of information that's been publicly feeding to a different large language models there. Right. So if you look at my left-hand screen, so that's the must establish first principles what we are talking about. So this is the four core principles which we are primarily focusing on. One is the AI governance body, right? So we have to make sure we set up a right governance team, right? I mean, the team has to be included from across the department, right? So one is from the IT team, another one is from a security, and people has to also participate from a legal and business standpoint as well, in order to have a perfect community there so that they can set up right governance principles, right? And second point, if you look at is from a data protection and access guardrails, right? Because this is something which is very key, right? So if you're setting up security and guardrails inside your M365 platform, you have to make sure you set the right permissions, and then you have a right DLP policies there. And then you also make sure you have a sensitivity label defined for all the documents as well, so that people across the organization access the documents which they have access to, not to the documents which they do not have access, right? Things like that. And then if you look at the third point, that comes the responsible AI and usage policy, right? Of course, from a security standpoint, we are informing security team to just block the unapproved AIs which have the public access of AIs. And then we are also defining the policies where user has to not access all this other AI tools which are not approved, in order for the company's reputation and our security as well. Right. I mean, if you look at our last point, the fourth point, it's the continuous governance education, right? So this is not only for just for the governance team. This is overall from organization perspective as well, right? So we are actually informing our clients to have a governance call for all the users in order to have education among how the governance is set inside of organization, what are all our best practices, how can you use a responsible AI across your work stream, things like that. So this is the four important primary points which we are talking about across our all our customers. And if you look at the right hand side, so this governance and guardrails, right? This is not just a security team, because we have been hearing from a lot of our people, right? I mean, what they say is, IT and security is the key for the governance, right? It is not like that. I mean, because it has to be from all the departments. If you look at it, it's a cross-functional governance team, right? I mean, IT and security has to participate from their standpoint. Legal has to be participating from their standpoint, and from other departments like the business leaders, employees, and risk management, right? So this is all the key team members has to be participating in the governance body in order to have a perfect governance AI. Right. So just to reiterate what I said, right, without governance, AI adoption is absolutely a risk, right? So with right guardrails, AI can create a sustainable advantage for the organization. All right. So just wanted to talk about our AI adoption accelerator, right? I mean, with our dozens of deployment, and this is the blueprint which we actually use, and then we are also executing it for our customers as well, right? So this is the sixth foundation which we do it for all the deployments for across our clients. So first one, if you look at it, is the foundation and readiness, right? So what we used to do is we set up a data ready there, right? So we analyze the data, what they have, what are all the environments they have, and what all the data is being classified in a different environments, right? So we identify all that, and then we also have a readiness checklist, and then we also have the remediation plan and the pilot rollout plan. So we have all the documentation ready, and then we capture the key items on the first stage. And then once that is done, we go to the pre-flight and pilot activation, right? So we talk to the leadership team. We have a best practice that we are not enabling license to all the users across the organization, right? So we are always informing our departments and our clients as well, just to have pilot team first, just to 2 to 3 members across the pilot departments, and then pull them in and then see how it goes. And then we'll enable it to the different levels of department, right? So this is the plan which we got. So we used to do this in the phase two, which is the pre-flight and pilot activation. So we set up the right team, and then create a roster plan, and we will also get ready with the communication plan as well, right? And if you look at the third stage, that's the enablement sprint, where we go ahead, because we have a lot of materials with us, right? I mean, we have all our training materials, what are all the trainings we have, departmental wise trainings. We also have our prompts, which we have pre-built prompts, and then we also have all our practice packs. So we have all our, educational materials in our backpack, right? So we'll go ahead, and then we'll enable the sprint, and then we'll have a formal training across all the departments, and then with the right materials to start the adoption there, right? So if you look at the fourth point, once the enablement is done, we will start off with the habit formation, right? Because this is very, very important. Because once we have the training, there might be chances, the departmental users get busy with their workload. So we keep sending up a lot of information from there, right? That's the habit formation area. So we will create an email with all the prompts built, So we'll have a Copilot Tuesday where we'll send out all the prompts on specific Tuesday. What they have to do is just copy the prompt and then run it in their specific apps. We'll set up an office hours where they can come in and then ask questions what they have. And we'll also create a prompt library as well where they can go ahead and then reuse the prompts which are already built in. We have a lot of things on the habit formation side. So we'll go ahead and deploy those to all our pilot users. And then if you look at the fifth point, that's the AI Copilot Hub page and the executive coaching, right? So this is something which we do it from a unique perspective where we will create an AI hub platform, maybe whichever platform they want. We can do it in the SharePoint or we can do it in their web page, and then where all use it's going to be a one-stop platform where users can come in and then access all the materials what they want. And then we will also give an executive one-on-one coaching as well, because there are a lot of clients which we were insisting for a one-on-one coaching. So we are also helping a one-on-one coaching specifically for executive levels as well. And this is a very important factor and an additional feature which we're providing from acceleration standpoint. Right. So if you look at the last point, which is the use case discovery and agent backlog. So this is where once we have the pilot done and then users are pretty much adopted to what they are and where they are, we sit with each department and understand what their business process is, and then capture what are all the agentic AI use cases what they can put up for the next sprint and things like that. So this is what we do from a overall adoption acceleration standpoint. So trust me, a lot of customers are getting benefited out of this. And then a lot of users are getting a positive feedback from this blueprint what we got. Right. So let me move on to the next slide. So this is something an interesting information, right? So if you look at this, this is something progression to transformation. Think of this like a user journey, right? If you look at this, I'm seeing this from a three perspective. One is awareness, adoption, and transformation, right? If you look at the awareness, right, that's where user gets into initial stage where he gets a what is Copilot, and then he thinks, okay, I'll start using this, things like that. And then if you look at the awareness stage, the DAU, which is the daily active users, which is ranging from 0 to 40%, right? And then if you go to the middle, right, I mean, it's the adoption stage, right, where users actually go get some knowledge about it, and then they wanted to actually try it and then see what are all the abilities of Copilot, things like that, right? So during this stage, we see a lot of active users ranging from 40 to 60% because they get some insights about what exactly Copilot can do and how it is helping their business process, right? So this is the important stage, if you ask me. So this is something which we are empowering a lot of our clients and then informing our customers as well. This is something, and we are helping our clients as well for specifically on the adoption stage, where they can actually see a lot of activity and participation on this specific stage. Right. So once this is done, if you look at the last stage, right, that's the transformation stage where user would come back and say that, hey, I cannot live without Copilot. Right. So that's the stage we are looking at. I wouldn't say we are there yet, but still we are trying to help our customers in terms of reaching that stage. Right. So if you look at the DAU there, which is ranging from 60% and above, right? So where because we have been seeing a lot of customers, right? I mean, they actually use predominantly 4 to 5 hours on Copilot averagely or on a single day, right? So that's a huge win-win for us where they can actually optimize a lot of efficiency from their work. Right. And if you look at the bottom, I mean, that's the change management which is required. So eventually you transform the change management is going to increase. So initially it's going to be less, and then gradually it's going to increase from your adoption to transformation stage. Right. So this is and this one is very important and interesting topic, right? So this is something, think of like we have all the adoption and AI strategies on board, and rollout is all success. I mean, we have a lot of customers coming back and asking specifically on the AI agent maturity model here, right? So, this is the maturity model which we have created, and we are helping a lot of our customers in terms of identifying where they stand in the specific maturity model, right? See, so if you see this, right, I mean, we have classified into 5 different levels here. So if you look at the level one, right, so that's the basic Copilot feature, right? I mean, most of our clients, I mean, where they stand here, and then they wanted to go to the next level from here, right? So If you look at the level one, it's the basic Copilot features where they use in their day-to-day activity, like, creating an email, summarizing an email, just drafting some couple of documents, and then creating a chats from Copilot chat window, right? I mean, this is the basic feature what they use. And then we are helping in terms of leveling up to the other levels as well. I mean, if you look at the level two, it's the personal and developmental agents, right? I mean, of course, users can create their own agents, right? So we are helping them in terms of creating their own agents, which I would say it's a simple agent, right? It's not a complex agent. It's just a simple agent referring to multiple data sources and things like that. So they can create a simple agent and they can use it among themselves, and then they can share it among with the different users as well. Right. And if you look at the level three, I mean, that's the customized agents, right? Where we come in and then we develop customized agents. And then we also onboard a couple of existing plugins like, Power Automate, things like that in order to make an intelligent agents there. And if you look at the level four, it's the advanced enterprise agents where, I used to call this as agentic AI, where agents talk to agents, and then and then it makes a decision from there, right? So that's the advanced feature. So we are also helping customers build and move forward from level 2 to level 4 as well. And then if you look at the last level, it's the build and buy solution, right? So we are also helping customers in terms of identifying what is the build versus buy cost, and then which would be effective for them in order to specifically for the specific business process, right? So this is the five levels, which the maturity levels which we have designed, and then we are helping all our customers in terms of identifying where they stand and how can we push them to the next level. Right. So, and next thing I wanted to talk about is tools and measurements, right? I mean, because lot of our customers, I mean, what they see is, I mean, they are doing something, but they don't have visibility in terms of, what can we, what our departments are doing. I know, as I said in the earlier slide, I mean, a lot of our leaderships are coming back and saying, I don't know what our departments are doing, right? So that's where we were helping a lot of our customers in terms of, measuring, how can they measure it, right, from a dashboard perspective. So there are a couple of dashboards which Microsoft offers in the backend. That's the adoption dashboard. This is a basic dashboard which I captured. If you look at it, you can see a high level information on how many users are there, what are all the active users, and what are all the prompts which they are playing around and things like that. And it will also give you an adoption score as well, right? So the adoption score is 51. And then if you look at bottom of my screen, the adoption by app, right? I mean, it says, so how many have been active users and which are all the enabled users, and then we can get some insights from here and then see, hey, Excel and PowerPoint is nothing, it's not going up. So I have to sit with users in order to make sure they get some insights on this one. So, right, all this is something which is available from an out of the box M365 standpoint. And we are also helping a lot of our clients in terms of creating an custom dashboards as well, where leadership wants to see specific information. So we are creating a custom dashboard and then showing them, hey, just to from a departmental wise view or any specific department or a overall adoption scores, things like that. So depending upon their requirements and criteria, we are helping building custom dashboards as well. Right? So this is from a tools and measurements perspective. So the next thing is, so this is some of our best practices, right? So what we have successfully deployed from a different client perspective. So this is something which we do in common across all our enterprise deployment. One is the pilot. So we set up a right pilot team, the targeted team across all our department, and make sure the pilots are comfortable using Copilot as well. And then second stage is we get into the governance. As I said, governance is very important. We have a lot of information about governance and guardrails, so we are setting up, depending upon the company's requirements. So we will set up a defined roles and responsibilities, governance principles, AI, responsible AI, all those from a governance standpoint. And once that is done, we'll start off with all our information from the backpack, which we got for the training perspective, right? So we will enable it. We'll have an training based on departmental specific, and then we have a lot of prompts built in. So we'll go ahead and train all that. And then once that is done, we'll start off with the measurement as well, where if you look at we'll measure it from as I showed you from tools and measurements perspective. So we'll create dashboards and things like that, and we'll have a visibility to the leadership team. And then once this is all done, we'll go ahead with the workflow integration as well, where companies can actually adopt from an agent perspective, and then how can they automate their complete business process with AI agents. Right. So this is how we have been planning our deployment, and we have been deploying to a lot of our customers as well. And right now, our the success is really phenomenal from this deployment strategy. Right. So moving on to my last slide. So this is something which I told you, right? I mean, there are a lot of our clients are getting benefited with our enablement program. And if you look at the left-hand first screen, I mean, one of our CIO from Global Financial Services, right? I mean, he said they don't have a governance and structure on board. So we help them in terms of having the governance and enablement, right? So it made a lot of difference for their organization, right? And if you look at the healthcare organization or the VP of healthcare organization, he said he came back and said that he has rolled out the license, right? But he hasn't got chance to measure it, or people haven't started using it, right? So we went with the adoption strategy, what we got, and then it gained a phenomenal results from what we did from there. And if you look at the other one, it's from the chief digital officer from one of our manufacturing enterprise, where they were helping, and we were helping them in terms of the C-level executive training there, right? So we were training all the C-levels in terms of specifically what they ask for, and then it showed them a lot of results there, right? So if you look at this one, right, so each and every customers have a different requirement here, right? So one has a different pain point, another has a different pain point. So we will make sure we set with them and then understand what specifically they need for their business process, and then help them with that specific process. So that's why we could able to measure our success, and then onboard a right strategy there. And if you look at the numbers at the bottom, right, it's a 60% weekly active users again insight from our strategy, and then 4+ hours saved weekly. And then if you look at the faster time of value, right, it is 3x from their from the value added proposition what we have given them. Right, so that's all I got. Getting to our final slide. Hope you enjoyed it, and then I'm giving it back to Revati again.
Thank you. Thank you, Sai. It was an insightful session and wonderful indeed. So we look forward to many more sessions like this. So thank you everyone for your time and spending it with us today. For more information or queries, please write to info@hexacorp.com and visit our website www.hexacorp.com. See you at our next webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.